Hi there. Today we want to talk about how first aid and security can and should work together on projects. I'm here with Jamie Rogers, our VP of Operations here at Western Protection. Jamie's got about 30 plus years working with remote security sites with boots in the ground experience, and we thought we'd tap into that. I'm Rob Relieder. I'm president and founder of Western Protection Alliance, and Jamie, I had to start out asking you some questions about some of our sites and how first aid and security can and maybe should work together. What's some of your expertise in that?
Well, security and first aid as separate entities, they can support each other in a remote location environment. Simply the fact that security are usually first people on the scene, they can secure a scene and then first aid can come in and deal with any of the issues relating to an actual first aid. Now, as a combined entity, there can be security and first aid together. We call them a dual certified first aid personnel. Varying levels of first aid, but usually it's an OFA3 or an advanced first aid. And if they're functioning as security initially and something happens, they can quickly switch hats and go immediately into the first aid role.
Okay, no, that's good. Now, how are sometimes those in situations, I guess, that they're siloed from a security role and a medical role, and how do you kind of get them out of that silo and help them work together?
Well, being both first responders of nature, security and first aid, they kind of inadvertently work together whether they want to or not, sort of thing. Security as a function, it's completely separate, but it's a reactive role. Quite often, they'll find themselves having to deal with a theft or a breach of some kind, whereas a first aid respondent will have to deal with an accident or some sort of a medical. So, first responders that they are, it's quite easy to have them work together.
So I guess security and first aid and or medical communication is super important then, with them having them work together.
Yeah, absolutely. And if somebody's hurt, first aid usually takes the primary role and will direct security to a certain degree. So an example, there's a rollover on the mine road. Security attends initially, they notify first aid that there's been a rollover. First aid is now attending. Now security is going to put up blockades on either side of the accident, make sure that there's no additional personnel that are coming through. And then the first aid attendant can deal with any injuries at that particular situation. So if there's any particulars that need to be dealt with in relation to the actual injury, the first aid attendant would then ask the security to assist with that. So they become a form of a supporting role.
Okay, no, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
And so as far as the coordination of that coverage integration, I guess that's really important. But other than a cost savings to the client, which obviously it is, what other benefits would there be to combining those roles then?
Well, quite often if a first aid attendant is present on site, they're really not doing a heck of a lot until there's an accident. So if you're combining both roles, you're able to utilize that individual when there's no first aid that needs to be attended to. And vice versa, if you have security personnel who's manning a low activity post, they can also deal with minor first aids. So they really sort of work off of each other, and there's big value in combining both.
And maybe talking about when the roles are combined, when we're doing, for example, search coming into a site, and how first aid can help augment security doing that search, for example, like sharps and that type of thing that we've encountered before. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
So in remote location access control postings, quite often there's protocols in place or policies as part of the client's structure. There could be drug and alcohol testing. There could be policies that need to be enforced prior to access to the site. So first aid attendants, an example, quite often will be the people that would be trained in doing the drug and alcohol testing. And then the security personnel, of course, they're doing searches. They need to be well versed in how to deal with hazardous objects such as sharps and knives and that sort of thing, and any sort of dangerous implements in people's luggage if they're searching it.
So talked about how it's obviously a cost savings because it's one person doing both roles, and then it also helps the project be more efficient too, because there's not more boots in the ground, but they're doing one combined role.
Right. I mean, if you have a dual certified person being an advanced first aid, formerly OFA3, and security, licensed individual manning an access control point, they're there and able to deploy quickly if there's an accident on the road or in the immediate vicinity. It could be on the highway. Quite often they'll have an accident on the highway which is just off site, but anybody that's been involved in that accident is going to be looking for somebody in the immediate area to assist. So quite often our first aid personnel will attend accidents just outside of the actual client's property line.
So to assist like the community generally and maybe other projects that are beside it or what have you, right?
Somebody gets hurt, People are always looking for help. You know, if you came upon a rollover accident on the highway when you were driving and it's quite remote, there's no cell coverage in the majority of these areas. So the first thing you're going to do is look for help. And if there's an access to a mine very close by, they'll quite often come in there and look for assistance. And if the first person that they come upon is a dual certified first aid and security person, that's lucky for them, because quite often, you know, they're able to immediately attend and assist with securing the scene and helping with identify what level of medical is needed. The communication is then made to the mine and onwards to EHS to attend.
And so the community benefits, the client benefits, and obviously the people do, because then they're getting on the job experience aside from their training, so they can take to other projects with us or advance to a different career or what have you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, a mining client can't go wrong having first aid and security personnel as first point of contact, as access to their project. All projects require first aid of some level, and when you combine those two disciplines, you're getting the best of both worlds. And of course, those personnel, they can be ported to any number of areas within the project.
Nice. Interesting. Well, that's good. Thanks, Jamie. And if anyone has any questions, how can they reach out to you and get more info?
Any questions, you can reach out to me directly at rogers@westernalliance.ca or call me at 604-880-6105.